Hey, thanks for joining me. Hope you're doing well. Pleasure is a feeling of happy satisfaction and enjoyment. This feeling is important and one which humans desperately need to feel and can be felt collectively, harmoniously. But when you look around the energy extraction matrix, what is the most promoted act? It's not pleasure, it's hedonism. This is the relentless and almost single-minded pursuit of one's own personal pleasure as one's ultimate concern. Commercials, food, music, sex appeal, all around us is anything that sparks the interest of the five senses. There's nothing inherently wrong with the five senses, but they have become twisted and amplified to such a degree that the overstimulation they produce becomes addictive and what most people automatically seek out. This unquenchable desire for stimulation is simply a misdirection of the desire of the flesh. A huge factor in increasing awareness and personal sovereignty is to work with the body in order for the soul to come through it most harmoniously. Overemphasizing the body and its functions, whether it's sexual or mouth pleasure, creates circumstances in which the soul cannot achieve this union of spirit and matter, pushing that God essence we all carry into the background. Too much focus on the desire of the flesh will always lead to a loss of spiritual identity. The flesh is hungry, and without consistent acknowledgement of its prime pilot, the soul, it remains unsatiated and longing for more and more. This hungry force is very easy to observe when we just pay attention. Without acknowledging that our thirst for pleasure is taken advantage of, we are left contributing to a paradigm based in vampirism, since more never becomes enough. This is what hedonism does. This is why the all-consuming tyranny of pleasure is the foundation of the energy extraction matrix. Many of us are brought up with ideas of the physical and spiritual being separate realms. A very common assertion is that the physical is void of true divine intervention, and therefore, if God exists, then the realm of God lies beyond our reach. But in reality, there is no separation. Separating the physical and the spiritual is simply an act of denouncing creation. And this is very convenient, since if the physical and spiritual were intertwined, and if the higher force of the universe runs not only through it, but through us, well, we would be forced to look at the world with new eyes. Upon realizing this, one would be presented with a crossroads, to choose illusions, or to confront all that one creates. Matter is always influenced by spirit. They are intertwined endlessly and without restraint. From a young age, we've all been inflicted with a scarcity-based mindset, lending to the idea that the world is limited in pleasure, and therefore one must grab what feels good in the moment. A big role in this is the propaganda of science. The false doctrine of evolution and the globe model inherently tells us to ignore our spiritual, timeless, multidimensional nature. If we agree that everything came from random evolution with no divine significance, if we are simply advanced monkeys whose brains developed consciousness, then we create our own thought prison that ultimately does lead to sensual hedonistic pleasures. We become materialist reductionists, only using our five senses to process the world and submitting to a more beast-like nature. Everything is an act of connection. You're either connecting with your divine essence, the God inside of you, that spark which knows no good or bad, only the timeless perspective of being, or you're connecting with the outer world on a strictly physical and/or mental level. Both acts of connection are necessary to achieve some sort of balance, and both acts of connection usually happen simultaneously. But how much one person connects with is based off of their spiritual maturity, and in the realm of your divine nature, you're either pulling away from it or bringing it closer to you. This system isn't forcing anyone to make disharmonious choices. It's simply making it easier for one to do so if they choose. We can indulge the five senses all day. We can choose to inject our lives with the chaotic roller coaster of hedonism, and because it's everywhere, it seems normal. What society is involved in is a continuous collective binge. A binge of food, a binge of drugs, a binge of shopping, a binge of money, a binge of material. If one is consistently thinking about how they can maximize their pleasures, there's no time for anyone or anything that isn't an immediate source of pleasure. This is why the extracurricular activities we're marketed have the overtones of self-serving behavior. Pornography, clubs, eateries, casinos, bars, music festivals, barbecue, liquor stores. It seems like everywhere we turn, there are distractions under the guise of fun. So much extra time is being spent focusing on the material that most aren't actively gaining the insight, inspiration, and clarity in order to be active members of tearing down this control system through our creation abilities. And here I must add once again, tearing down this matrix is not done by going against it. It's by recognizing our sovereignty and ability to create as humans, and then detaching peacefully. This process, believe it or not, is infinitely more effective than resistance. Resistance to this system leads to suffering, where surrender to the God within leads to bliss. Everything is an act of merging with consciousness. The air we breathe, water we drink, food we eat, it's all conscious. Care and gratitude is the principle that must be followed when it comes to using the five senses. Without gratitude, we express entitlement, with greed quickly following. Hedonism allows us to take pleasure in things that are shameful to the divine plan. And this is why it's so easy to ignore the intuition of the soul. To step out of hedonism means one must fully recognize its sorrows. The fact is, we're in the final days of choosing sides. Neither side is better, just existing at different frequencies. On one hand, we have the fully ramped up energy extraction matrix machine, churning out more and more archonic programs to keep itself entertained and in spiritual confusion. On the other hand, we have the new earth being revealed by those who have ejected from this system, both spiritually and physically. To sum everything up, what we think of as happiness is oftentimes a cause for great suffering. We will never gain internal solace if we always reach for external stimulation. Fewer material desires leads to less suffering. We must desire that which cannot be held. Love, compassion, a new world based in truth. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I love you all.